Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second part in Adobe's online series of webinars showing you how to maintain business continuity. My name is Steve, and I am a solutions consultant with Adobe, and I'm really excited to be able to present to you today. Our goal with this webinar series is to help your business overcome some of the challenges that arise with this changing environment. And in order to illustrate this, we've come up with a series of business cases where we'll be talking about a different scenario each week. And we're going to teach you how you can use some of Adobe's solutions to meet some of these challenges head on. Now, don't worry, this won't be a super technical session. You don't have to be a product expert or a designer in order to follow along with this series. So if you're a business decision maker, a brand owner, a marketeer, or just someone with a keen interest in design, everyone is welcome in this series, and we're going to be covering a different subject each week. Last week's session was hosted by Bart. It was a fantastic webinar, and he showed some of the collaboration capabilities in Adobe Creative Cloud. Now, I'd highly recommend seeking out the replay for that webinar. Bart really is a wizard with CC. Today's session, however, is called How Your Business Can Quickly Switch from Paper, Physical Transactions to Digital. And I think the key word there is quickly. This week's business case is around a local flower shop. It's a chain of flower shops that are wishing to expand their offering to customers. And in today's 30-minute session, I'm hoping to show you just that. We're going to show a paper printed form going to an online form that is able to take credit card payments in just under 30 minutes. At the end of this session, we'll have a bit of time for Q&A. The event chat box is on the right-hand side of your screen there. So any questions you do think of, please do pop them in there. We'll have a bit of time to get to them at the end. You can also send me a tweet. My Twitter handle is @SteveWalkerWeb. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the course of today's session. And as I say, we will get to your questions at the end. Just before we start, I just want to give you a sneak peek into next week's installment of the webinar series. It's called How to Save Your Business Time and Budget with Smart Editorial Workflows. And it's going to be presented by my colleague Tommy. And it's a session looking at addressing the issue of your designers wasting time making small basic copy amends to printed materials, for example, reports and catalogs and the like, anything that's created in Adobe InDesign. And it's going to be an introduction to Adobe InCopy, which allow editors and designers to be able to work seamlessly, hand in hand. That is, of course, next week's session. This week's session will follow now. So without any further ado, can we please play the video? Hello, my name is Steve and I'm a solutions consultant here with Adobe, specializing in Adobe Sign, Adobe's electronic signature solution. Today, I'm going to show you how using Adobe's web form capabilities built into Adobe Sign, you are able to create online fillable forms that will allow you to collect electronic signatures, and we can even collect credit or debit card payments to continue orders processing online. So what I'm going to do, we have a fictional company today. We have Mary's Flowers, who would like to be able to continue taking orders online using their existing paper form, but with Adobe Sign, we're going to convert this to a digital form. So here is a blank PDF that we've got, that maybe these would be printed out and there would be a stack of them left at the desk in the Mary's Flowers branch. We're going to take this form and we're going to convert it to a digital form, and we can embed the form directly into Mary's Flowers website here. We've created a page called the online order form, and all the signature and the calculation of the bouquet that's going to be created, plus a personal message as well with some dynamic showing and hiding fields. It's all being calculated at the bottom here. What we can do with Adobe Sign inside of this website here, we can complete the order, taking electronic signature and the credit and debit card payment as well, all from within inside the Mary's Flowers website. Okay, let's get started. So first and foremost, I'm logged into Adobe Sign now. So you'll see I'm on the home screen of our web portal here. First option we need to choose is to publish a web form. So we're going to click on that. We're going to give our web form a name. So I'm going to call this one Mary's Flowers Order Form. All the other options on this screen are okay, so we're not going to have any additional roles taking place. Our signers are just going to be signing and paying for their order. No additional authentication required. And we don't require any countersigners either. So we're simply going to have our customers fill out the form and sign at the bottom and make their payment. For the files, let's drag and drop in that PDF then. But we can have multiple files if we wanted to. Maybe there are some terms and conditions. We can add them onto the end as well. But we'll keep it really simple. It's just that one-page paper PDF form. Now, there's nothing fancy I've done to that form offline now. It's completely static. It is a scan of a paper form in PDF format. Checking this box here now, in Adobe Sign's preview screen, we're going to convert it into a custom digital form together. So let's press the next button now, and our document is uploaded. Here is Adobe Sign's preview screen then. So this is where we're able to use the interface to drag and drop various different types of fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, drop downs and the like. We can even do payment fields as well. We're going to go through, this session is going to cover most of those types of fields here. So we're going to have quite a complex field form taking place being built here on today's session. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see this a bit easier. You'll notice in the top left-hand corner here, Adobe Sign has actually detected where it thinks form fields should go. And if I click on this box here, it's going to add in 17 form fields for me automatically. A really great time-saving capability there. So if I do click on that, you'll notice that the boxes have actually been added in for me. And I'm being asked now to review them to make sure that everything is correct. On the whole, Adobe Sign has done a pretty good job here, so everything's all lining up nicely. There's a few tweaks that we'll need to make, but this has saved us a lot of time. So the first question here is entering in the name. So that's fine. We've got a text box has been added in for us automatically. We'd like to make this required. And what a really good idea to do is to add in a tooltip. Just this will pop up as a nice, polite little speech mark at the bottom of your field there that will say, give you a little bit more of a hint as to what's to go into this box here so we can prevent any errors from being entered in. So I'm going to put in, please enter the name as the tooltip. All the other settings on here look okay. Let's move on. The email address. So again, I'm going to make this a required field. The tooltip is going to say, please enter the email address. Now, Adobe Sign will allow you to do validation on the data that's entered into text boxes, and email addresses is one of the options. So we can make sure that what's entered into that box is a valid email address. So that's great. Let's press OK on that. Double click on our phone number field here. Again, I'm going to make this required because we do need them to enter this in. And for the validation, again, a telephone number is supported. So let's make sure we check that we've got a valid UK telephone number in the correct format. And that's that complete now. I'm just going to also add in the tooltip as well. Please enter the best contact phone number. Press OK. Right, for our delivery address, we need this to be a multi-line field. So I need to make sure I check this box here. This will allow people to enter in multiple lines of data. Again, it is required. We can't deliver a bouquet without that address, so it's very, very important. And for the tooltip, I'm going to put in, please enter the address. And press OK. Our top section is looking good now. I think we can move on. So the actual order part of the form here. Now, Adobe Sign has detected that we've got fields here. Now, what it's done is it's added radio buttons. So the difference between a radio button and a checkbox is that a radio button will only allow you to choose one of these 12 options here, which is not strictly correct. Because we're building a bespoke bouquet of flowers here, we need to be able to check more than one option. So I'm going to remove these. and then I'm going to add them back in as checkboxes. So from the right hand side here, we get all of our different field types in Adobe Sign. Let's move down to the data fields section, and I require a checkbox. So I'm going to put that into place. I'm going to add in the remaining 12 checkboxes here for all of our flowers. Okay, we have 12 checkboxes in place. And what would be a good idea as well is, because there's no description on here as to what these might actually be, we can use the tooltip section. So I'm just going to very quickly add each of these in now. So now the tooltip section for our order part of the form is now complete. So each one of our flowers has there indeed got a tooltip that will pop up to make it easier to see what each of the different flowers are. Okay, we can move on. The bouquet price section now. Adobe Sign has incorrectly detected these as two different fields. So 20 and 40 thinks it's one question and 30 and 50 is another. So let's remove these and add them back in as a new set of radio buttons. Adobe Sign is going to ask us how many options are in this question. So I'm going to go up to 4. We have 4 options. And let's drag these into place. So let's double click on our first option here. Bring up the options. We're going to give this group a name, and we're going to call it bouquet underscore price. Let's make sure that that name is copied across to all of our 4 options. Indeed they have, so they must share the same name, otherwise they don't have, that they won't be related to one another. We need to be able to choose just one of these 4 price options. Okay, now we need to make sure that the value that is pulled through does match what's actually on the form. And the reason why we'll do this is because this is then going to be passed through onto our calculated field section a little bit later to calculate the price. So 20, 40, got an option for 30 euros here in the value section. And finally, we'll make sure this value is 50. Everything looks good here now. Delivery date, let's double click on this. Adobe Sign has detected that as a date field, which is not strictly correct because this will be the date of which the form is filled out. So it's usually the date of when it is signed. So that's not strictly correct. Let's change this to a standard text input. We will make it required. However, we need to validate the text that comes through to make sure that you're entering in a date. So it can be any date in the future. Date format, let's change that to DDMMYY. We'll make the tooltip here. Please enter the date and then we'll put DDMM/YY so that people know that's the format that we're looking for. Just remembered we have to set our bouquet price as well to be a required field. So we have to be able to choose how much they want to spend. Okay, Adobe Sign's got a signature box for us, no problems at all, and that's also required. That's looking nice. And for the personal message option, we'd like that to be a checkbox instead of a radio button. So let's move that into place. Double click on that, bring up the settings, and we shall call this message. So this checkbox will be called message. It's not required. You don't have to have a message, but yeah, the option is there for us to do so. It is a checkbox called message. Okay, our message field itself needs to be multi-line, and we will also make it required as well. So the reason why we will make it required is that we can have it pop up and disappear based on some conditional logic elsewhere in the form, i.e. when we check the fact that we would like to have a personal message, we can have this message field appeared and then make it required only when it's on screen. And there is a way that we can do that. So Adobe Sign has a conditions section here. Let's open this up. And it's very, very easy to do. We can show this field when any of the following conditions are true, and we want to show it when message is checked. It's as simple as that. This form field will show and hide based on the fact that message being checked is true or not true. For the tooltip, let's enter in, please enter your greeting. That will be printed onto the little card that comes with our bouquet. Okay, everything looks good here. Let's press OK. So we can add to the experience of this form even more by hiding the entire section completely and only show it when it is needed. And we can do that by sticking a white mask over the top. And the way we do that is using a text box. So let's add in another text input field. And this time we're going to size it to the correct dimensions so that it covers up our message section underneath. We're going to use this and create it into a mask. So let's give it a name. We'll just call it mask for now. We're going to make it read only. So we don't want anyone to enter in any text into this box. We're purely using it as a white mask over the top. Making it read only, we'll color it in white so that it's not required for any text input. And the conditions on this one, we're going to do the opposite of our message box underneath. We're now going to hide this mask when any of the following conditions are true. Message is checked. And press OK. Okay, everything is looking really good now. The final piece of the puzzle is where we need to calculate the total value of the bouquet and pass that through to an Adobe Sign payment field. So what we'll do to make the form a little bit easier to read, we've got a nice space down here for an additional field. Let's put in the total amount payable as a field. So I'm going to enter in another text box here. We'll make it read only because this will just be the label, and the default value in the text box will say total payable. This will be the label that appears here. Let's scale that down. Total amount payable will be here. And to the right of that, we're going to add in an Adobe Sign payment field. Now, Adobe Sign partners with a payment gateway called Braintree. Now, Braintree is a PayPal company, and I have connected my Adobe Sign account to my Braintree account in order to be able to take payments. It's beyond the scope of today's video to show you how we did that, but it is very simple to do. An admin can do that from the Account tab. Connect your account, and once that connection's taken place, you will see the Payments field option here on the right-hand side, where we can then drag and drop a payment field into our form. So that has now been done. Let's come back to that payment field a little bit later because there's one other additional field that we need to add in that contains some logic. So one final field to add in, let's add in one final text box and move it into this little space here. The reason why we have this text box is that we need to do a little bit of mathematics in the text box that's going to take the value of our bouquet and add it to an optional €1 on top of that to find out whether the message has been chosen yes or no, and to decide whether that needs to be added on to our total bouquet price to give us our final grand total payable. So custom field 6, let's double click on this one here. This will have a calculated value. So we need to make sure that we choose that. Adobe Sign has a formula builder to help you build this formula. So I'm going to click on the formula builder option. It's going to bring up another pop-up here. What I'll do is I'm going to grab a formula, enter it into the formula box, and I'll explain briefly what I've done. So this is going to take the value of it's going to do a check basically. It's going to check to see, has the message section been checked? So if we check the box that says, yes, I would like a message, this text box is going to contain the value of 1. If it does not checked, then it will contain the value of 0. And that 1 corresponds to, of course, that one additional charge of €1 charge that's going to be on top for requiring that message. And then if it's not required, it's just simply going to be 0. Let's check the syntax on that. The expression is valid because message is indeed a field that does exist. If message is checked, 1. If not, then 0. That is all we need to enter in. Let's press OK. And that has now been accepted. Going back to our, hold on a second, let's rename this. So we'll make sure we give this a name so we can pick it up later in our payment field. So I'm going to make sure we call this one message underscore price, just so that we can recognize this a little bit later in the list. Okay, now we're ready to move on to our payment field. So let's double click on the payment field to bring up the settings. Adobe Sign payment fields will allow you by default to enter in the value that you'd like to pay. So that's fine for perhaps a charity if you'd like to make a donation, absolutely fine. For this use case, we would rather not have our customers enter in the amount they'd like to pay us. Obviously we can have mistakes and people enter in too many zeros, for example, and we don't want to take too much money from anyone. So we're going to change the value type here to be a calculated value. Once again, we have our formula builder. So if we open this up now, we're going to build the expression that's going to create how much money we're going to take from the customer. So we're going to go to the field section. We're going to scroll down to the bottom. Our bouquet price, which is either your 20 euros, 40, 30 or 50. We're going to take that. So I'm going to click on the plus button here to add that to our formula. We'd like to take the bouquet price, but we also want to add bouquet price to the message price. So that's our dynamic text box that we just made earlier now, which will either be 0 or it will be 1 based on whether we check that box or not. So bouquet price plus message price is our formula. Check the syntax. Everything's looking good. Let's press OK. Currency has been set to euros. That's absolutely correct. And everything else looks good on here now. Let's just press OK. All right. We're very, very nearly there. Now, our magical text box here that we have that's calculating the price, either the 1 or the 0 for that personal message, we don't need to see that. It is just purely in the background. We should probably hide this if at all possible. So let's zoom into our form. And what I like to do is anything that's sort of functional that hides in the background of our form, I make it as small as possible. And then I simply just drag it down into the bottom left-hand corner, so that it's not going to be visible by our signers, but the logic is still there underpinning this form. Right, I think we're absolutely very, really ready to test this now. So we've got name, email, phone number, delivery address all looking good. 12 optional checkboxes with tooltips that will explain what each of our parts of the bouquet are. Mandatory price choice, how much would you like to spend? Delivery date, plus a signature. Optional message box with that dynamic and showing hiding section here that we'll be able to enter in that message, and the total amount being calculated towards the very final end of this box. Right, let's press the blue save button. It's telling us here that our detected fields have not been reviewed, so we do trust Adobe Sign that it has done a good enough job. We can review them, so the ones that were added in automatically, they are fine. I will just press save, and our web form has now been created. So this is what it looks like here. Adobe Sign has given you an example of the web form. This all looks good to me. And it gives you 2 URLs, or 2 ways that you can access this form. On the left-hand side here, you can take this URL, visit it, send it out to people with an email perhaps, or click a link on a website, and you'll be taken straight through so you can complete the form. This URL will never change, and it will always be your personalized URL that you can share publicly with anyone. Second of all, Adobe Sign gives you an iframe embed code, which you can take to embed this into your website. I did show you that earlier. Here is what it looks like in the Mary's Flowers website. We drag the handle here so we can complete all of the form from within inside of Mary's Flowers website here, and all of the required fields that are needed to be completed shows up. It's all perfectly dynamic. So yeah, all the signing can take place inside of the website. Let's jump back to Adobe Sign though, and what I'll do is, just so that we can test this and show the functionality working, let's take this URL and we will visit it now and see what our signers will see. So this is the web form here, and it's loaded in a nice large window here so we can see what we're doing. You can see that there are 7 required fields. Let's go through and complete an order now, shall we? So I'm going to enter in the name of the person. I'm going to send myself some flowers. So Stephen Walker. My email address, let's put in an email address in here. Let's enter in a telephone number as well. And you'll notice that if I try to leave this field without enough numbers in my telephone number, Adobe Sign is prompting me to enter in a valid telephone number. So we don't quite have enough digits there. So I need to enter in the correct number. That's now been accepted. Exactly the same for the email address as well. If I try to enter something that doesn't match the pattern of a correct email address, Adobe Sign will flag that, so that's great. Delivery address, let's go for 123 Any Street. And once again, with multi-line checkboxes, we can press enter on the keyboard to put in multiple lines of text. Here's a postcode, and the country is United Kingdom. Okay, scrolling down. We now need to build our bespoke bouquet. So I'm going to go for some forget-me-nots, and you can see the tooltips are popping up, so that's nice. Let's go for some red roses as well. I'm going to enter in some white rose, the polar star here. We'll bolt in some, so go some of these, and we'll enter in bits of foliage as well, just to pad it out. I think that is a nice bouquet. It's a nice order here. How much would I like to spend? Okay, so let's go for 40 euros. If I check this option here, you'll notice that the 40 has automatically been pulled through. Changing this to 50, 30, 20, it is updating in real time. For the personal message, I check the box, and indeed 41 is now the new total, and our message section appears. Let's uncheck that, it disappears, and we go back to 40 euros being the amount payable. Okay, let's enter in a greeting here. So let's go, hi Steve, great job on the webinar. Thanks, Steve. That will be the message that's going to be printed onto a little card, fantastic. And for the delivery date, let's go for the 1st of June, 2020. Once again, we do have validation. So if the date doesn't match the format that we require, we do get that error message popping up. Okay, final step now. Last required field here is to sign. So let's click to sign, and I'm just going to enter in my signature here. And I'm going to click on the apply button to apply my signature to this document. And we're now ready to submit this. Notice we get the black bar along the bottom, pay and sign. Let's click on that now. This is where we need to enter in our credit card details with a total amount payable of 41 euros for our bouquet. I have a testing credit card number here, which will simulate a successful payment using a Visa card. So that's entering in number 1 and entering number 4, followed by 15 ones after that. Entering the expiration date and a security code. We're now ready to place order and sign. So if we press this button here, the blue button, it will simulate a successful payment going through on a fictional Visa card. Click to sign, and 41 euros has now been deducted from that. Okay, we've now filled that in. Let's now jump back to Adobe Sign and show you how that we can track these web forms when they're out in flight, and we can find out how many submissions that we've had and how we can start to trigger next steps perhaps every time one of these are filled out. So jumping back to Adobe Sign here, we're going to go to our Manage tab, which is our 3rd tab along here. Let's jump down to the Web Forms section. And you'll notice at the top of the list here is the Mary's Flowers order form. And you will notice that one agreement has been successfully completed. Every time someone fills these out, you will receive an email. So attached to that email will be a copy in PDF format of what it is that that person signed. And of course, you will also see it in the web form section inside of Adobe Sign as well. So we'll allow you to download all of the form data that was entered in. Take that email, perhaps you can use that to trigger the next steps if you needed to as well. So let's open up this submission here. Let's click on that. You can see it was Steve Walker who filled this out. Let's click on open, and we can open his submission and view it inside of the web portal here. This is the data that I entered in. Fantastic. Scrolling down, here's my signature. I've opted for a €40 plus a €1 message to be added in there as well. Looking good. And if we have a look at Adobe Sign's audit report on the right hand side here, this is the part that's going to show you all the events that took place when this web form was actually completed. And it's this part here where you can see that the document was paid for successfully, and it's the audit report that will give you the transaction ID in Braintree as well. So you can tally up the payments that you have in your Braintree account with the Adobe Sign order form that comes through. So that concludes today's session. Thank you very much for watching. We went through how we were able to create a web form using Adobe Sign, a great capability where we can take a paper form, convert it into a digital form, capture legally binding electronic signatures, and capture credit or debit card payments. We can take that form and embed it directly into your website so that you are able to continue taking orders online. So there you have it. I hope that gave you some kind of inspiration as to just some of the things that we're able to do with Adobe Sign. And I hope you agree it's an easy to use interface there. And in no time at all, you were able to create an online form from a paper form that's able to take credit card payments. I'll give you just a few more minutes to get some of your questions in using the chat box on the right hand side. Please do submit them there. And I did mention earlier that you can reach me on Twitter. My handle is @SteveWalkerWeb. Okay, let's have a look at some of the questions that have come in now. There was one question earlier that was asking that original PDF, where did it originate from? So what was the piece of software that built that originally? So of course, yes, this did presuppose that we had a paper PDF that already pre-existed. Adobe Sign will take lots of different file formats, so it doesn't have to be PDF, but in my demo, I of course didn't mention it, but that did originally come from Adobe InDesign. But you don't have to use InDesign to create your PDFs. We can create great looking PDFs from Adobe XD if that's required. And if you don't have access to that at all, you can certainly use Microsoft Word. And you don't have to convert to PDF at all. We can take Word documents themselves and upload those into Adobe Sign there. So that's another great capability there where we can take any document that you throw at Adobe Sign. That can then be converted to your online form there. But I hope that has answered that question there. A couple of questions have come in about the replay for today's session. Yes, that will be distributed to you shortly after the session completes. Do look out for that replay link. Just have a couple more seconds for any more questions to come in. Let me check the Twitter feed. Okay, I think we shall leave it there. So everything does come up over the course of watching the replay of this session. Please do reach out to me. My Twitter handle again is Steve Walker Web. I'm more than happy to chat to everyone. Webinar 3 in this series, the link will be released shortly. So just a reminder that is, of course, a look at Adobe InCopy, about how designers and editors are able to work hand in hand to make these small copy changes onto your printed materials. But apart from that, I think that does just wrap it up for today's session. I do like to thank you very much for your time. Please do be sure to look out for the replay as well if you'd like to watch this on demand. But for now, I thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.